Now we've gone through and passed the separation between private and public, and the way this begins, even with the statement of birth record, the legal surname operates as an office. So it's a public office. Now a child can't have a public office. We already know that. So you can understand that even the beginning of the framing of what goes on here is really based on definitely frivolous hearsay, because there's no possible way a child could have or have an incumbency of an office. We're going to go through the understanding of what an incumbent is, but if you even go into, say, Black's Law 4th edition, and I'm referring these because, whether I go into the 10th or I go into the 4th, I mean, go wherever you need to go to find the definition. You're going to find exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not going to quote something that doesn't exist, and therefore that's why it's so important. That's why I generally have a library full of books. It's not for the purpose so much I've gone through it, but it's to at least bring an understanding to people that at least I took the time to look into the legal mind of this insane world of Satan, and I've seen what it does and how it operates. But I did that from a truthful spiritual position because I understood the spiritual side. I just I couldn't comprehend how we'd be operating in a legal side when Jesus said his kingdom is not of this world. So the minute you become a Christian, you absolutely have nothing to do with the legal anymore. You're absolutely walking by the blood of Christ, and you're in the highest authority under the supremacy of God. And that's why it's so important to say your God-given Christian name, because that says you're a member of that kingdom. You're not a member of the legal. Why would you want to use something that leads down this crazy trail of legal debtorship and suretyship? So it's the other side is literally a fraudulent scam. There's no other way I can possibly call it, but what would you expect from Satan and his kingdoms? So, it is an inducement to become a member, and of course they threw the carrot out to the parents and gave them, some, benefits of the doubtful titles. So they gave them hospitalization insurance or some type of benefit that they signed on to, a tax credit. Why would you need a tax credit if Christ has canceled out all debt? That's another ridiculous thing, but we've all been caught in the illusion. It was part of the journey, and it was to eventually wake up to spirituality from the highest source, from the mind of God, through good conscience, the knowledge of God, and therefore to now act on that. And it would have to eliminate something from the legal side in order for that to occur. So we look up the word incumbent. Incumbent, it says, is the holder of an office or benefice, resting upon as a duty or obligation. Now, the ones who operate the legal concept, that legal obligation is upon the state for anything to do with that allegation or that fictitious title. It was never our obligation, ever. So there was an inducement to basically remove the responsibility off of the legal people holding an incumbent office, such as the Registrar General and Deputy Registrar, and to take them off that, and then basically place, get you to novate their responsibility and enter into another contract with whoever they're in business with, possibly regarding the use of the bond and how they insure it. And therefore you've walked into a new contract that states that you will take the state off of the responsibility. You can imagine if everybody understood this, what would happen. There would be just nothing but beneficiaries and a whole bunch of legal trustees having to pay for the fraud. I don't know what else I could say to this. People say, Dan, it sounds like you're not being subject to the higher powers. No, I said I'm being as subject as I can, because the truth is I agree with thy adversary, because they're on the hook for the legal fraud. So I agree with them totally. I'm walking as best I can in truth, but I can see the fiction, and I know that the fictitious legal signing authorities on there are responsible for their own scam or scheme. So when you look up private person in the law dictionaries, it will lead to the definition not a member or a holder of an office, or an incumbent of an office, which means you're not in public office. Now, you could never have been in public office because you're not public. Public means belonging to the state under a taxation scheme. Private means you're the property of God, because we're separate from the world. God does not mix his property with the state. It's a separation. There's no possible way spirituality would mingle in with fiction. So there's a clear dividing line there. So even though they recorded the God given name on the record, it doesn't belong to them. That's why it's not transferable, it's unalienable. Now, you can, by your alienable estate, take on by assumption and consent the legal duty to assume the last name incumbent office of the public side, but you don't have anything that proves that you were given that. In fact, if anything, you're just assuming and authorizing, and it's unique when you look at to request a birth certificate that they even further get a little, they put a little feather beside it to show that it's your opinion. It's an opinion feather that you're signing onto this nonsense, and you're authorizing them to give it to you. So you're taking on the responsibility. But in reality, even if you wake up and you understand that it's not yours, well, not your responsibility, well, then you bring it back to the original signing authorities on it, because they're absolutely the ones on the hook for it, because they issue the bond. Therefore, if they issue this legal bond, it's upon them. Don't complicate the matter. They're on the signing authority. So within the legal construct of the Roman Catholic Church that operates this worldwide sin program of collection, they run this big collection plate, and they're basically have their godmother and godfathers who sponsor legal faith of this fake legal child that happens. Not a true spiritual baptism. It's just a legal concept of child baptism, and that you now belong to the church at time of birth. But they're talking about the legal surname child. They're not talking about the spiritual one. So it is it is so interesting to see the watermark that's on this, the birth record that the parents fill out when they make the statement and the hearsay. And then basically who comes forward, the Deputy Registrar General, Godmother, Registrar General, Godfather, and then they issue a certificate, and then basically they're now the legal sponsors, which means they're the legal sureties for this legal child. But not when you take them off of it, and then you say, hey, give me the responsibility, I'll assume it, and I'll start working with it on my own, because I'm not going to let you handle your own legal responsibility that God has ordained you to have to carry. So we've run into a problem of confusion, there's no doubt about it, and hopefully slowly and working closely with these videos, we're gonna get to completion of this journey, because it really is finished. There's really nothing more that we need to do other than to place the responsibility on who it is the responsibility of, but not when you're putting your face and your signature on, affirming consent and taking it over, and then getting yourself into being the prodigal son or daughter.